I'm writing this from my apartment, and I need you to understand something before I explain what happened. I need you to know that the Minnesota Starvation Experiment was real. In 1994, at the University of Minnesota, Dr. Keyes conducted what would become one of the most disturbing psychological studies in American history. 36 conscientious objectors, men who refused to fight in World War II, volunteered to starve. For 6 months, they were fed approximately 1,800 calories per day while performing hard labor. Then, for 3 months of rehabilitation, they were slowly refed. The results were horrifying. The men became obsessed with food, collecting recipes, licking their plates, some even contemplating cannibalism. They experienced severe depression, self-mutilation, and personality changes so profound that several never fully recovered. One man, it's documented, cut off 3 of his own fingers with an axe, though he couldn't remember if it was deliberate or not. The experiment was designed to help understand how to refeed starving populations in post-war Europe. It was conducted in the same basement of the University of Minnesota's laboratory, in a nondescript building that still stands today. I know all of this because I'm a demolition consultant. Was a demolition consultant. 3 weeks ago, the university finally approved the teardown of the old laboratory, the building where the experiment took place. Most of it had been abandoned since the 1980s, deemed too outdated and too expensive to renovate. My job was to survey the structure, identify any hazardous materials, and map out the safest way to bring it down. I went in on a Tuesday morning, alone. The building smelled wrong from the moment I entered, not the usual mildew and rot you get in the abandoned buildings. This was sharper, more organic, like the rendering plant I'd surveyed a few years back, but with an undernote of something vinegary and sick. The main floors were standard, with stripped offices, empty labs, and the accumulated dust of decades. My footsteps echoed too much. The architectural plans showed 4 stories, but when I checked the stairwells, I found markings for a sub-basement that wasn't on any of my documentation, except a small note at the back. Professional curiosity is a liability in my line of work. I should have left it alone. The stairs were narrow, institutional concrete that had been painted years ago. My flashlight caught something on the walls as I descended. Scratches. Deep ones, running parallel down the concrete in sets of 5. Like someone had dragged their fingernails down the wall hard enough to gouge the stone. The sub-basement was a long corridor lined with small rooms. Cells, really. Each had a narrow bed frame, a small desk, and a single bare bulb overhead. The note on my documentation said this level had been used for extended observation during various studies. The rooms still had numbers stenciled on the doors, S1 through S36. 36 rooms, 36 subjects. I felt cold despite my jacket. The scratches were everywhere down here, on the door frames, the floors, even the ceilings. In one room, someone had carved words into the plaster. Still hungry, still hungry, still hungry, repeated in manic spirals that covered an entire wall. The handwriting degraded as it went, becoming less controlled and more jagged. At the end of the corridor was a heavy steel door with multiple locks. A sign read, "Long-term observation. Authorized personnel only. Dr. Keyes." The locks were already open. I should have left. God, I should have left. The room beyond was large, maybe 40 by 60 feet, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above my flashlight's reach. The smell hit me like a fist. That rendering plant smell intensified 100-fold. And underneath it is something else. Something that made my hindbrain scream. There were beds arranged in neat rows. 36 beds. 23 of them were occupied. I need you to understand. I've seen bodies before. Construction site accidents, a few suicides in buildings have been surveyed. I know what a corpse looks like. These weren't corpses. They were moving. Not much, just the slow rise and fall of breathing. And they were wrong. Even in the dim wash of my flashlight, I could see that they were wrong. Skeletal didn't begin to describe it. These were bodies that had consumed themselves, burned through every ounce of fat, and then started on the muscle, leaving nothing but skin stretched over bone and sinew. But they were too long. The proportions were off. Their fingers extended far past where fingers should end. It tipped with nails that had grown thick and yellow and curved. Their joints bulged grotesquely, knees and elbows swollen to twice their normal size. And their eyes. When my light swept across the nearest bed, the eyes snapped open. They were huge, occupying nearly half the face, with pupils dilated so wide they looked black. They reflected my flashlight like an animal's. The thing's mouth fell open, and I heard a sound I'll never forget. A wet, desperate clicking, like someone trying to speak through a mouthful of saliva. Its jaw descended too far, and I saw that its teeth had changed, become sharper, more numerous. Then it moved. I've never seen anything accelerate like that. One moment it was lying still. The next it was upright on the bed in a crouch, head cocked at an angle that would snap a normal person's neck. It didn't move smoothly. It twitched in a position like a video skipping frames. Every single one of them was awake now, 23 pairs of those massive, hungry eyes fixed on me. I ran. Behind me, I heard them coming. Not footsteps, but a horrible skittering sound, like they were moving on all fours, or more than four. I didn't look back. I hit the stairs and took them 3 at a time, my lungs burning, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. Something grabbed my ankle. I fell hard, my chin cracking against the concrete steps. Dazed, I looked back. One of them had caught me, its hand, if you could call it that, wrapped completely around my leg, those elongated fingers meeting on the other side. Its face was inches from mine, and I could see every detail in the emergency lighting of the stairwell. It had been a man once. I could see that in the bone structure, in the remnants of humanity still clinging to its features, but starvation had refined it into something else. Something that evolution never intended. Its skin was translucent, blue veins visible beneath like a map. Its eyes were desperate, starving, insane. Its mouth opened wider than it should be possible, and I saw its throat, convulsing, saliva running down its chin in streams. The smell of its breath was indescribable. Rot and stomach acid and something chemical. It spoke. "Hungry," it whispered, like dried leaves. "So hungry." I kicked it in the face with my free foot. Something crunched. It didn't let go, but it recoiled enough that I could wrench my leg free. I scrambled up the stairs on my hands and knees, then found my feet and ran. I made it to the main floor. The exit was right there, daylight visible through the grimy windows. I was gonna make it. Then I saw them again. They were in the hallway ahead, 3 of them, blocking the door. They must have known another way up.
They moved in that horrible stop-motion way, twitching from spot to spot, their heads moving in sharp, bird-like jerks to track my movement. The one in the middle was wearing the rotted remains of what might have been a U of M volunteer badge. I could just make out the year. 1945. 78 years. They'd been down there for 78 years. I looked around frantically and saw another stairwell leading up. I bolted for it, hearing that skittering behind me again. Up one flight, then another. I was on the 3rd floor now, running down a corridor with empty offices. There, a window, and a fire escape outside. I didn't slow down. I put my arms up and dove through the glass. I landed on the fire escape hard enough to see stars, glass embedded in my jacket and hair. Below me, I heard them throwing themselves against the window frame, unable or unwilling to follow. I half climbed, half fell down the fire escape and ran to my truck. I was a mile away before I stopped shaking enough to drive properly. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? I called the university and told them the building was structurally unsound, that we'd need to seal it before demolition could proceed. They said they'd handle it. That was 3 weeks ago. At first, I thought I was fine. Shaken, sure, but fine. I'd had a scare. I'd escaped. It was over. Then, I started getting hungry. Not normal hunger. This was something else. I'd eat a full meal, a huge meal, more than I'd normally have. And an hour later, I'd be starving again. Not just peckish, genuinely, painfully starving, like I hadn't eaten in days. I went to a doctor. She ran tests. Everything came back normal. She said my metabolism was fine. She suggested it might be psychological. Gave me the number for a therapist. But it's not psychological. I know because I've lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks, despite eating constantly. I know because when I look at my hands, my fingers look longer. Not much, just a little. Just enough that I notice when I'm typing or holding a fork. I know because my joints ache, my knees crack when I stand up, and they feel swollen, hot to the touch. I know because last night I looked in the mirror and my eyes seemed too large for my face. I know because I can't stop thinking about food. Every thought circles back to it. I dream about eating. Wake up with my jaw aching from grinding my teeth. I've started collecting recipes, obsessively, printing them out and covered my apartment walls with them. When I eat, I catch myself licking my plate. Yesterday, I found myself calculating the caloric content of my neighbor's dog. I know because the hunger isn't in my stomach anymore. It's in my bones, in my cells, in my DNA. It's rewriting me from the inside out. I drove past the building yesterday. There were university maintenance vehicles outside and workers installing heavy steel panels over all the windows and doors. A new sign read, "Condemned. No entry. Dangerous structure." They're sealing it. Sealing them in. But it's too late for me. I'm writing this as a warning. The Minnesota Starvation Experiment didn't end in 1945. It's still going. Those men volunteered to be starved for science to help humanity, and something in that process changed them into something that shouldn't exist. Maybe it was the duration, starvation for so long that their bodies adapted in impossible ways. Maybe it was something else, something in that building, in that basement. It doesn't matter now. What matters is that I feel it happening. The changes are accelerating. My fingers are definitely longer today. I had to resize my keyboard at work. My jaw clicks when I chew, like the bones are loosening, preparing to extend. I'm so hungry, I can barely think. And eating doesn't help anymore. Nothing helps. Last night I felt the urge to go back to that building, back to that basement. The hunger calls me there, Whispers that relief is waiting in the dark with the others. That I belong there now. That I've always belonged there. I'm trying to resist. I'm trying so hard to resist. But I'm so hungry. And my lease is up next month. I don't think I'm going to renew it. If you're reading this, stay away from the old laboratory of the University of Minnesota campus. Don't go near it. Don't try to investigate it. They've sealed it now. But seals can be broken. And whatever you do, if you're ever anywhere near that place and you hear scratching sounds coming from underground, if you smell that rendering plant smell mixed with vinegar and wrongness, run. Because they are still hungry. We are still hungry, and I don't think I can hold out much longer. My fingers are too long to type comfortably anymore. I'm ending this here. There are 36 beds down there. I think one of them was always mine.